Hey everybody, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in to the match recap of the June 20th ORPS match that I shot at the Stitchville shooting ranges. Once again, of course, it was well executed and organized by Thomas, so thanks again, Thomas. If you're watching this, it's always such a pleasure to shoot these matches. I thought I'd do this quick introduction with some voiceover. I'll put some pictures and some video, but just to give some context of the day and explain some things before we dive into the footage of the match itself. So today was the first match back from the pandemic lockdown, and as such, Thomas was using today as kind of a test to see how the course of fire would be run with the new squad setup to adhere to social distancing measures. He ended up hosting the match twice, once in the morning and once at noon, in order to bring in the same amount of people that would generally come out to these matches, but have more squads with fewer people in each one. So generally we had 3 to 4 people in each squad, and we had 5 squads going on at each time. The match was a kind of mini match, if you will. There was only the ORPS stages with no bonus stages today. Again, since it was a test day, he didn't want to run overtime, and it seemed, I got a feeling that we definitely weren't crunched for time. Both groups finished about an hour early, which is a good sign because that probably means he can fit in some bonus stages for the next time. Now, of course, I don't want to talk for Thomas. That's not my decision to make, but that's just the feeling I got. We weren't too crunched on time, which is good to see. Now, I did have a pretty neat opportunity to shoot both the morning and afternoon matches. I was registered for the morning match, but since I was lending some targets for the 50-yard zero, as well as helping some newer shooters, I was able to shoot the afternoon match as well, which was a really cool opportunity because I could kind of look back on what I did in the morning and see if I could improve on that. Now, of course, my morning score through the course of fire is the official score that was noted down, and the second time I went through it was purely for fun and again to help out some newer shooters. But it was still a really neat opportunity again to try and improve my score, which we'll talk about in this video, but it was pretty neat shooting the same course of fire twice consecutively. So talking about the weather today, it was quite nice. The last match I shot was actually in the winter, so this is a complete 180-degree turn in the weather. It was blazing hot today. The forecast when I left this morning was calling for 34 degrees, which was not including the humidex. So really, really hot. You know, you got your sweat pouring in your eyes. And towards the end of the day, I felt quite fatigued, even though I was drinking cold water through the whole thing. But the heat definitely played a role in terms of my stamina and fatigue. But it was a good experience. It was really quite hot, but it wasn't too windy, just some small gusts here and there. Now, because the squads were quite small, both the squads I was in for both the morning and afternoon course of fire, I had 3 people in my squad. So unfortunately, I couldn't get good footage of other shooters. Generally, I like to show footage of not only myself shooting these matches, but for this match, just because of how things set up, I will have mostly footage of me shooting the stages. I think how I'll break down these stages for you guys is I'll show my first run of each stage first. So again, this was the morning course of fire that I shot with no commentary. And then we'll come back to the footage with some commentary, and I'll talk about things that I was trying to implement, some techniques, how I was using my bags, as well as any other thoughts. And then if applicable, I'll show how I changed it up in the afternoon course of fire that I was able to shoot afterwards. Now, keep in mind, I'm not an expert by any means. I'm actually still quite new to this discipline, so I'm always open to any sort of constructive criticism. If any more experienced shooters see something that I could improve or techniques that I can work on, by all means, let me know, comment down below. I'm always very happy to hear people's thoughts and opinions on these techniques. But again, this is just from my point of view and just trying to show some things to newer shooters that they can try and work on as well. Okay, so stage 1 was called Barrel of Fun. This was shot off a 55-gallon drum. There is a KYL target with 4 targets at 25 yards, and you essentially had to shoot through the KYL target 3 times from the right, the middle, and then the left of the barrel. It was not hit to advance, and it was a 12-round stage.
Impact. 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 I think you gotta go low, Carl. Impact. I wouldn't hold left edge, right edge. Impact. 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 Okay. Impact. 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 Impact.
10 round stage. Waste time on time stage.
Waste time on time stage. Yeah. First thing you want.
What?
Impact. Impact.
So for this stage, you can see I'm trying to have 2 points of contact. You can see I've angled the bipod legs back at a 45-degree angle to try and clamp onto the barrel, and I'm using my barricade bag here upside down to give me some support on the grip, and I found this to be a very, very stable way to shoot off the barrel. It worked really well. Now, I think if you were pretty crunched for time, depending on the stage, this takes a little bit of time to set up, so if you're really under the stress of the clock, this might not be the best setup, but for this stage, I think it worked really nicely. You'll see this is a common theme in my shooting positions, is I'm always trying to get more than 1 point of contact for stabilizing my rifle setup. The more the better, and if I can, I'll try and use a rear bag on either the grip or the stock, of course, to help me facilitate that stabilization in the rifle system.
Impact. Okay.
You can see as I acquire the target, I'm just adjusting the rifle on the barrel. This was actually a little bit easier than I thought it would be. There's quite a bit of play you can use on the barrel. You can both move the bipod up and down, slide it kind of on the curve of the barrel, or use the barricade bag to adjust the height of the rear of the rifle. I thought this worked really nicely, and I shot both the morning and afternoon match in the same way and ended up doing decently. I think I got 9 hits out of 12. So stage 2 was called Stand and Deliver. ORPS will always have one stage that is unsupported, sling only. So this stage was that one for today, of course. Standing stages are very commonly, I would say, people's weakest point, and that is very true for myself as well. I definitely struggle shooting offhand, although I have been practicing a little bit more recently, and I'm quite happy at how I performed on this stage today. I got 8 out of 10 hits. Your first target was a 5-inch plate at 50 yards, and you had to hit that 5 times to advance to the 75-yard plate, which was 6 inches.
Impact.
That was most familiar to me. I got 9 out of 10.
Impact. That's 4? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I like when we switch things up. Well, really cool.
Impact.
Let's see if I were talking last night about the offhand stage. We kind of are hard with those heavy rifles. His was mine was still while we were talking. Mine came in 4 rounds under 7 pounds. How heavy is that? You got the forge back, I see.
Impact. Impact.
Let's range the back.
Impact. Nice. I think you're done. Oh, in the back. Yep, I'm done. And get some dope.
Now, one thing I find helps a lot is trying to get your left hand in as close as possible to your body so that you can use it up against your rib cage or your hip to give some really good support of the rifle. If you have your arm too far out on the forend of your rifle, there's really nothing between your elbow and your body supporting it, and your arm will become fatigued a lot quicker and you won't be able to hold your rifle as steady. So you can see here my left hand is actually holding the rifle behind the mag well, almost on the trigger guard, and you can't see it because it's on the other side, but I had to curl my fingers in order to not cover the ejection port or run into the bolt handle. But I found this was the best balance point on the gun, and it still allowed me to get my elbow nice in and close to my body, which worked really, really nicely. I actually shot this stage quite a bit worse in the afternoon, but I think the heat at that point was really starting to play a role in how steady I could hold my rifle. Another technique that I just learned recently, which I'm trying to implement for offhand shooting, is not trying to hold the reticle on target, but rather to try and control your reticle to start off the target and then slowly walk onto target, whether you use your breathing or another method, and then firing off the shot as your reticle comes onto target. If you try and hold your reticle on the target, more likely than not, you're going to pull your shot off as the target is actually coming off your point of aim. This does take some practice and getting used to, but it's something that I found works really nicely, and it's something I'm going to try and improve on. Stage 3 here was the milk crate pyramid. It's essentially a small pyramid made with 3 milk crates, and this stage only had one target, which was a 3-inch plate at 100 yards. You would start on the left crate on the top, shoot the target 4 times, then transition to the top of the milk crate pyramid, engage the target another 4 times, and then engage the target again on the right crate.
Impact. Impact. Impact.
Position. Stand time.
So right there before you move it, Chuck, open your bolt.
Yep. And then I'll give you a flag.
Impact.
There's no rush. You take the time you need to take, get up the line and on the line. No one's gonna fucking.
Impact.
Impact. Can pick up all your stuff. I have you for 3 hits.
Super short and solid. Yeah, I got my
well running back.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to think of. Yeah. That's what makes it exciting. So I'll have you start for Steve.
Impact.
Yeah, I didn't do that. Oh, I didn't do that, and I ended up one time.
Impact.
Are you guys able to shoot through the...
Did you build that?
Yeah, but you get lift your bipod really high.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Done.
You'll see here again, I'm trying to get 2 points of contact to really stabilize that rifle. The way I'm using the bipod here is very intentional. You can see the legs are angled back at a 45-degree angle. Now I put the legs so that they would contact the crates right at the balance point of my rifle in front of the magwell. And I did this so that I could easily pivot the gun as needed. If it was too far forward, it'd be hard for me to adjust the elevation as needed if I had to go lower to see the target.
Impact.
When I transition here to the top crate, you can see I'm putting my knee up so that I have contact between my elbow or my arm and my knee to give me that secondary rear support. When I transition to the right crate, again, I'm using the same method with the rear bag on my elbow. You can see I'm using my bag here with my elbow, which was a really nice solid shooting position. Now, the second time I shot this stage in the afternoon, another shooter by the name of Kevin gave me a good tip that running the bag on the pistol grip on the top crate was probably more stable than running my elbow on my knee, which I totally agree with. So I gave that a try, and it for sure was more stable. So that's just another point of something I can practice, I guess, is knowing just because I have 2 points of contact doesn't mean it's just as good as another setup with 2 points of contact. So using the rear bag on the pistol grip like this definitely gave you a little bit more control. Stage 4 here was called tiring shift. There were 4 tires kind of leaned up on each other randomly, and there's 2 targets, a 50-yard target that was a 1-inch plate and a 2.5-inch target at 75 yards. You would have to shoot off of each tire and engage T1 and then T2 once, and then a 5th position of your choice on any tire, again engaging T1 and then T2.
Impact.
Ready?
Yep.
Stand by. 3, 2, 1, engage. I feel like I should get an A22 through the
Impact. Yeah, you should.
Impact.
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 Impact. Impact.
That's a time. 2 seconds left on the clock.
I'll take it.
Impact.
Oh yeah? I'm
Impact.
I really need to be better at time management. I finished this with 36.
Impact.
Even over there, I'm scared.
Impact.
Oh yeah.
Now, the first time I ran the stage here, I had no idea what I was doing, and I had some issues stabilizing my rifle because I was trying to use mostly just my bipod on the tires. I wasn't quite sure how I was going to use the barricade bag as support, but I kind of had it off to the side just in case I needed it. You can see here at one point I try and use it as a small body bag to try and fill up some negative space in my shooting position, but it didn't work great, and then I ended up transitioning to using it on the tire here under the rifle as per usual. I think I could have shot this stage way better if I was more prepared, or if I had thought about it with a little bit more knowledge, because the way I was doing it here, I basically had no rear support the entire time, and it was not optimal by any means. So the second time I shot this stage in the afternoon, I decided to use the pump pillow that I made. Now, this is a positional shooting pillow that is basically made to fill up negative space in your body position. And since I could get an okay grip on the tires with my bipod, I decided to try and really focus on the rear support. Again, that common theme of having 2 points of support on your rifle setup really made a big difference. You can see here how I'm using the pillow inside my body to help me fill that crevice so that my body isn't bobbing up and down, and it worked really nicely. I can't remember my exact scores, but I did significantly better using the pump pillow. So again, this is something I wish I had thought of before shooting it the first time. And using the body strap on the pump pillow, you can see it's really easy because it just transitions with me as I move through the stage. And when I don't need it, when I'm going prone, for example, I can just toss it over my body and get it out of the way. But it's still attached to me just in case I need to use it again further in the stage of fire. So the last stage here, stage 5, was called chair work. There were 3 targets, T1 at 50 yards, 1.5 inch, T2 at 75 yards, 1.5 inch, and then T3 at 100 yards, which was a 2-inch plate. Now, you would engage each target once in the 3 different shooting positions, which was on the back of the chair, on the seat of the chair, and then underneath the chair. Now, after the stage was run a few times, it was made official that you could shoot the underneath the chair portion beside the chair, because we were having some issues of fitting some rifles underneath the chair.
Impact.
I found sitting, like as long as you're...
Stand by.
Impact.
Got a little extra here that I can lift.
Oh yeah. Can I shoot here? You gotta go under the chair. I don't want to shoot the chair. Well, yeah, that's what I was.
Impact.
Impact.
Here I'm trying to use my Atlas bipod as support. It's really awkward when you try and cradle the rifle with just the bag, because your bipod can get in the way and hit the top of the chair. So I fold my Atlas bipod legs back towards myself to give me a nice flat platform to put on top of the bag. You can see I actually have the pod lock turned up and away, so it's not sticking straight down, so it has no chance of contacting the back of the chair. I think this worked really well, and it was something that I had thought of and practiced at home. When I transition to the seat of the chair here, I throw the bag down and I deploy the legs, which again worked pretty well. You can see I'm putting my knee up here to get some contact in my body to once again have 2 points of support in my shooting system. Now when I go to shoot under the chair here, you can see my rifle actually doesn't fit under the chair. My scope is too high to actually clear the seat of the chair. This was kind of awkward because at this point people were not shooting from the side of the chair yet, and the targets were in pretty high grass, so my bipod was set up so that I could see them, but I had to lower them here in order to shoot from underneath the chair, but then I had to really crank my neck up in order to see the targets. The second time I shot this stage, I did basically the same thing, but shooting beside the chair was much easier to get the hits for sure. Okay, so that was the match breakdown. I hope you guys enjoyed the stage breakdowns. I was trying to give some in-depth commentary of my techniques and things I was trying to implement. Again, if you have any sort of feedback or criticisms of my techniques or things I should try and implement, definitely let me know. I'm always open to try and learn more and get better in this discipline. I hope you guys enjoyed my commentary. Again, it was a little bit unfortunate I couldn't get more footage of other shooters, but just the way the match was run today, it was a little bit difficult to do so. So hopefully I can do that next time I shoot a match. If you guys have any questions, as per usual, I'll do my best to answer them. Have a great day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
It goes quick because a lot of times you have that.
All those mistakes that I've seen. I keep hitting the same target. No, that's sure you hit the target. You gotta go to the next one. Yeah. It didn't count, right?
Impact.